Today on an all-new Dr. Phil. Workplace bullying can affect you physically.
I threw my back out. I started losing my hair.
It can take a terrible toll on your mental health.
She would yell at me. She would demean me.
Now I start thinking I'm worthless.
We're still rewarding this behavior. We need to make it taboo.
If you wake up every day and let somebody else tell you what your worth is, then you've given them your power.
When I was young, I had a boss who was a bully.
So I was bullied in the workplace at this company I worked for.
My boss was a massive bully from the first week I got to the school.
I've been one of the employees getting treated really badly, and my manager just kind of standing there allowing them to do it.
He was very rude and yelled at me and was disrespectful in front of everyone. A staff full of women, no one spoke up for me.
She would yell at me. She would demean me. She would tell me that I was basically stupid and that I didn't have any value in the organization.
She started treating me very differently, not responding to emails, trying to control any type of communication I had outside of the company or within the company. It was debilitating.
He would call me 6 a.m. in the morning, 9 p.m. at night, weekends. If I didn't pick up, he would start screaming, swearing, leaving rampant text messages. It was the worst experience of my life.
I'm just calling out the things that really need to change, and you guys totally know that. Office bullies, toxic leadership, it's got to change.
Who here feels like they have been bullied at work? Raise your hand. So quite a few of you. Is anyone not sure? Raise your hand. Because I think by the end of the day, you might look at it differently. Now, one last question. Who do you think are the bigger bullies at work, if you were going to guess? You think it would be men or women? How many of you think it would be men? Okay, how many of you think it would be women? Oh, wow. You're barely wrong. It's slightly more men than women, but it depends on who the targets are. Because women tend to bully women more. Men tend to bully men slightly more than women, but they do not play favorites. They do cross back and forth. Now, Zanika, you claim that you were bullied for years and your bullies were female colleagues. Tell me what happened.
So I'm in the front desk department, and they have a back department that, takes your blood pressure, takes you back. And there was a divide between. So it was the back department that I had a lot of problem with. But it wasn't just me. It was the way they spoke to us at the front. It was just like they were supposed to speak to us in a certain way. We were supposed to listen, and we were not supposed to tell if they were rude to us, but they could tell on us for every little thing. It was just like, it's a dynamic within the doctor's office that I'm sure is not just my doctor's office.
Heather, you say you know exactly what Zanika is dealing with, correct?
I'm just so proud of Zanika for putting herself first and walking out. I was not that courageous. I was the one that I let them fire me. And like a single mother, just like you, being so paralyzed by fear of how am I gonna pay my bills? I have a non-compete. What does the future and this uncertainty look like if I make the leap? I'm just so proud of you that you did it. I threw my back out. I started losing my hair. I mean, I was really deep into the anxiety, so much so that I didn't know how to get out and ended up getting fired as a result.
And what form did it take with you? What was happening? What were they doing?
So it was one woman, and it started really quietly. I was continuously being promoted, as was she. So you would think that we would have each other's back, right? That's what you would hope. We sit on similar boards, empowering women. It all looks so nice on the outside. However, it wasn't so nice. I'd walk into a meeting, she'd ask in front of everyone, what size pants are those? There would be the games of, I would submit for my bonus paperwork like any other employee. Crickets, no response, delays on everything, anything that could impact me in a financial fashion without answer. I could walk into a meeting and she'd walk around and acknowledge everyone and walk right by me. These really passive aggressive moves to allow me to know, stay in your place, get in your lane, back out of my way, or you're gonna have repercussions and challenges. And then ultimately she ended up being promoted, and that's when she fired me immediately.
Yeah, and one of the things that research tells us across time, and it's really human nature, sadly, is you often see, targets of bullies being people that are threatening to someone. You know, they're hearing footsteps. And these are people that are really competent. They distinguish themselves, they get their work done. The people that they should be lifting up, because look, these are good team members. These are people that make us all look good, but they just can't coexist with them because they're so insecure and they're so threatened.
No matter how much I would try to get her to like me, because that was my strategy at first.
Right,
But I know
same.
you know
Yeah,
that, right?
yeah.
I'm sure I can show up better. I can
Right.
make you
I could be
happy. I can
nicer.
make it about you. But the more I did that, the more I became a B-rate version of myself. And then when I finally decided to start saying, okay, that's not working, I need to start showing up as me and the most powerful version of me. And that's when things got really blew up at work.
Same thing. Same for me. I thought if I just fell in line, I just did everything they asked me to, and I was nice, and because I was already a good worker. It is the thing. They see that I am somebody who can really do this job well, and that didn't work. Nothing worked. Nothing worked. So I was like abandoning myself for people who could never see me anyway.
Dr. Phil, she just triggered me. Nice. Nice.
Okay.
Drop it. Drop nice. The
Okay.
Oxford English Dictionary definition of nice is foolish. Let's not go there. Kind, but bully targets, quit being nice.
Well, you know, interestingly, one of the things that I said that you may hear from me that you don't expect is I'm not going to say a whole lot about what you can do about the bully, because the reality is there may not be a whole lot you can do about bullies, not totally, but there is a whole lot you can do about the only person you truly control, and that's yourself. And the first step you have to decide is, I'm not going to be defined by this person. Now, Sly, you claim you experienced workplace bullying, and it eventually led you to contemplating ending your life, correct?
Yes. I worked for corporations and startup organizations for over a decade, working with really ethical leaders. So when I decided to go out as a contractor and start doing some work on my own, I was surprised by the things that I experienced as being a contractor versus an employee, because the protections aren't necessarily the same. And the amount of unethical things that I encountered were shocking. And in one organization, I was working with the government, and I basically sat at my desk for 7.5 out of 8 hours a day, not doing any work. I was asked to put together a budget and went to go meet with people to get budget numbers. And they're like, don't worry about it, just make up the numbers. I didn't feel good about it. And it was against my moral compass to get paid for not doing any work. And I was getting paid a lot of money. And so I decided to resign. One of the managers I was working with said, hey, come over to my team. So I came over to the other team and started working. But my other manager, who was very big on her reputation, started a counterattack against me and started undermining the things that I did, started a campaign to discredit me. And it just became very uncomfortable. And for me, I became stressed. I had anxiety. Then I couldn't find employment. And I'm like, what's wrong with me? And then at a certain point, I couldn't pay my bills. And I had to go to court. They wanted me to go to debtor's court because I couldn't pay. And I couldn't do it. And I was not thinking about ending my life. And I woke up. It was dark. It was heavy. I couldn't focus. And within a matter of hours, I just went into this spiral. And I called my brother Johnny, because I was the caregiver for my mom. And she recently passed last year. And I just wanted to know that she was going to be okay. And he realized that I was breaking down, and he kept calling back. And he saved my life. And I want to bring awareness to the negative impacts of unethical workplace bullies and the impact and the danger that they cause to lives. And we're told to be good people, and it shouldn't be so difficult. But that's why I'm sharing my story, as painful as it is.
You know, there's something that I said earlier about, I'm going to talk to all of you that can be targeted with this, that can become targets, as Gary says. And you have to say, look, the only person I control is me. And it's very impressive to me that you came to that realization, which is why you're here. And one of the things I always encourage people to do is to pick up a habit of testing the rationality of their thoughts. There are just 4 criteria that you can use to test the rationality of your thoughts, even at the darkest possible moment. And one is to say, is what I'm telling myself factually true? You know, I'm telling myself, you know, that I've failed, that I'm no good, that I don't have a meaning or a purpose or whatever. Is that factually true? Because feelings aren't facts. You have to ask yourself, is what I'm telling myself, my internal dialogue, is this factually true? And then second, you have to say, are these thoughts that I'm having, are these in my best interest?
I was emotionally bullied throughout my career. I was told I was nothing without Goldman Sachs. I was told I was nothing without their money. I was teased, I was tormented. When I had my 4th child, I was nursing and I wanted to use the lactation rooms. When I went to use them, I was mooed at like a cow. Looking back, I have a better understanding now of my experience. I see how the toxic work environment not only encouraged this behavior, but required it in order to succeed.
We strongly disagree with Ms. Higgins' characterization of Goldman Sachs culture and these anonymized allegations. Had Ms. Higgins raised these allegations with our Human Resources Department at the time, we would have investigated them thoroughly and addressed them seriously. We have a zero tolerance policy for discrimination or retaliation against employees reporting misconduct, and all claims are thoroughly investigated with discretion and sensitivity. End quote. One of the things you don't want to do is take the attitude, if you can't beat them, join them. You know, you don't want to do that. You don't want to say, well, okay, if that's the corporate culture, then if that's the way to get ahead, I'll do that. That doesn't work either, does it? Yeah. Look, here's the thing I want everybody here to know, and this may sound mercenary, but it's how you do it that keeps it from being that way. Everybody here, I don't care what your job is or what you do, everybody here is a company of one. You are a company of one, you're a company of one, you're a company of one, you're a company of one. I don't care if you work for the United States Post Office. You are a company of one. You are in business for yourself. And you got to ask yourself, how am I doing? How's my company doing? How's my company of one doing? You are a life manager and you have one client and you can't fire yourself. So you got to ask yourself, how am I doing? Have I run it off in the ditch? Am I not doing well? Am I unemployed? Am I in debt? Am I in a bad situation? And since you can't fire yourself, then you need to work with yourself and say, what am I not getting that I want? And if you're going to be a life manager, you got to realize you teach people how to treat you. And like I said, you can't give your power away because how they treat you is about them more than it is about you. But you have to know that. And you can't move on until you accept that. Until you accept that what they did to you, it's not about you. Until you accept that, you can't move on. And some things only you can teach you. I can tell you, but only you can teach you. And you have to accept that or you can't move on. This is chess, not checkers. So you've got to think your way through this. You know, there's a reason the rearview mirror is this big and the windshield is this big. You've got to look forward. For you to come here and talk about this, you have no idea how many women will relate to and say, wow, if she can go through this, then I can understand it. I don't have to be ashamed of this. Tomorrow on an all-new Dr. Phil, transgender athletes. Should an athlete compete on a team that matches their sex at birth?
There are very few places where biology really matters, and sports is one of them.
There is no inherent competitive advantage for trans women. It hasn't been found.
Did you feel like it was an unfair advantage?
You are competing against a biological male. Yes, I feel cheated.
That's tomorrow. Check your local listings. Do you have a story or a question for me? Click the link in the description and tell me what in the world is going on.